how would you?
All right.
Yeah. Can I have a 5-day weekend next week?
No.
And not come to
No. No 5-day weekend. All right, so next Wednesday is the high school business contest for those people on campus. So we will not have a course in this class on Wednesday, so don't expect a recording or anything. But it is a really great idea. We're going to have a lot of high school students here. You guys will all be dressed up. Always look really nice. So, week 5. We're going to talk about a few things in here. At the bottom of week 5, if you scroll down, although they may still be loading. Oh, nope, they actually popped up. There are 5 videos. So there is a video tutorials to lead you through this week. So you will be able to go through those. So we're going to only get some salient points in here. And what I want to talk about then is our project. So I have got feedback to everybody except one group, and I'm going to actually do that in class live today, or at the end of class or somewhere today, for that group and that case. So read the comments, read your feedback, look what's in there. Make sure you look at the comments, because I did try to insert comments into the document. Sometimes I've had some students say that isn't working, so if that's the case, we will go back to the old way where I printed them out, scanned them, reloaded them, or whatever. So there is a quiz this week, and then there is a discussion board. But what I want to look at is, this week we look at, or on the final project, this week you're actually looking at an overview of their technology. So this can also be systems, not just a particular piece of hardware. How are they using that particular piece of technology? So one of the things that people always tend to do, and every time I will caution you on this one, is this sets the foundation for the rest of your paper. If you do not put in details, it's hard to make recommendations in the future. So, details. If you say, my business has a computer, that is significantly different than if you say, they have a Packard Bell computer purchased in 1937 with these specs hooked up to a blah, 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 blah. Those details will allow you to start thinking about those recommendations and allow you to make recommendations in the future. If you don't have details, what is it used for? Maybe they have a computer, they're using the keyboard as a hammer to put nails in the ground. That's different than if it's being used to actually do something, put in a spreadsheet. So those details matter. If you're thinking about a computer, it's not just the specs of the computer, you also may want to think about what software they're using. What are they doing with it? What software are they using? What other things are they using in that office? If they are having paper flows of information, that is a technology. How do those forms arrive? Do they magically arrive? Do they print them out? Are they contracting with a local company to print out a 3-part form? That's a form of technology, a form of that information flow. And so you're going to go through and you're going to document that. So you're going to create, and remember the hardest part of this is you are trying to be not prejudicial. Because right now you're just objectively gathering data. You don't want to come in predisposed and say, well, we're going to buy all the computers. That's different than if you go through and you make a recommendation that we may do later on. Because we have another couple of steps of recommendations involving these items that you're going to start working with. So, now, I jokingly talk about pencils and pens, but you might look very carefully. How are they doing things? Those might be the most important item in that business. How is that business using what they have? So, take a look. If all of a sudden you see, hey, they have a computer, but they have a manual typewriter, what are they using that manual typewriter for? So as an example, where I see that a lot, I see manual typewriters still in an office, and people are typing up addresses on envelopes. They only have a couple they need to send out. They're typing up that address on that envelope. Is that maybe a perfectly reasonable use of that technology? It might be, but it might also be that maybe the recommendation later on in our project is you spend $70 on a Dymo 400 label writer, and you can print labels, and you don't have to retype a name every time. You can have a label pre-printed. Or you see that they have a copier with a multi-feed option later on, and you've addressed that. You have that as listed, and you say, here's a typewriter, they're printing envelopes, and you see they're printing a lot of them. Maybe they could reserve a drawer for envelopes and be able to print those out directly out of a document or something, rather than having to hand write it. So right now, you're trying to be objective, looking at what they have. Now, some of you are involved in your project in interesting ways in that you work there, you own part of it, it's a family member, it's a family friend, something. This is objective time. So you need to look at these from that objective viewpoint. If you were an outside entity walking in, what do you see when they come in? So pretend that you don't have any relationship with this organization other than you got hired to come in and do a technology and information systems overview. And you want to find out what they are doing. So those flows, how that data moves around, is almost more important in a lot of cases than the technology they use to do it. So how are they doing things? How is that technology, how are those things being utilized? So maybe they have an ERP software. And one of the things you notice when they're doing that ERP software is you see them over there with a 10 key adding up numbers a lot. Maybe they're not letting the software or the computer program do its job, and they're trying to do things ahead of time. So those kinds of things. You go into an accounting office, an information flow might be, why are they making T-charts all over the place? What is going on in this business? So you're trying to examine it. So it's not just I walk in and I take a snapshot, and they have 12 computers and I walk out the door. You need to take a really good look at what are they doing. Are they using fax machines still? And there are businesses that still need and require fax machines. So the reality is there are business documents that sometimes need a fax. Yes, there's some other ways around it, but right now that's how they're functioning. So if you're in the medical field, sometimes the reality is that faxes are the only way to send a document that makes it legal. Or if you're in a judicial system, sometimes that signature has to be attached with things like a fax. So you want this to be as detailed as possible. So some of you may have a much bigger list of items in your technology. And this is one of the problems with, if you have selected something so broad, you said, I'm going to investigate Target in Omaha, you're probably going to be far too broad for this, so it makes it harder for you to do that. So you need to have details about it, because that leads you to how things operate and how the business functions. So if they have newer technology, how does that get there? Did they purchase it outright? Have they used leases before? Sometimes those become very important questions because it can lead to change. Think about copiers. Copiers tend to be on a lease. So you might be able to pry out a lease price out of them, and that can lead to some interesting discussion. We just changed out a very small office. They're an insurance agency, and they actually leased a copier, multifunction machine. And quite frankly, it did the job. But they were paying almost $200 a month to lease this machine. They still had to pay toner, they still had to pay for paper, and they were spending about $200 a month. What we ended up doing is we looked at what they did, and they printed 99% black and white. And we said, excuse me, bless you. So we looked at what they were doing. What are they using it for? How many pages? And we actually said, you know what, it would make sense to purchase, in this case, they purchased a Brother. We purchased 2 identical machines for about $1,000. So remember, they're spending $2,400 a year on this machine. We found ways that they could service them, And the reality was, although it pains me from a dispose of society world, but these machines, if they made it, I think the cutoff was 8 or 9 months by the time we had figured out with spare parts and everything else. If they made it to that point, 8 or 9 months old, and they broke, you know what? Throw them out, buy another one. You're still cost effective to do that for that particular organization. Now, that's not true of all organizations. Because of their volume, that happened to be at the place that they were at. So those kinds of things then allow you to make those decisions. But if you don't have that data, so things like how much are they printing? What are they copying? What are they printing? Leads you to be able to make those recommendations later. But what I want you to do is not be biased up front. Now, it's going to be hard to. If you walk in a business and you see them printing a lot, and you see them using a $150 inkjet printer, and you ask that question, I see you print X number of pages approximately. How many toner cartridges are you going through? It sets you up. So you do have to be a little careful not to blurt out immediately like, oh my God, what are you doing, you crazy idiots? But that does happen. And I have seen places that do that. So I ran into one not too long ago that that's what they were literally doing. They had bought the $49 or whatever it was Walmart printer. They're printing in black and white, but most inkjet printers won't even allow you to print unless there's also color cartridges in there. And the color cartridges would outdate, but they were replacing black ink cartridges multiple times a week to actually keep up. The amount of money we saved at that point by implementing a basic, I think it was $150 laser printer, and they were able to save thousands of dollars over a year. So these kinds of things, if I don't have those details, I can't make that kind of decision. So those kinds of attributes become important. If I'm in a business and part of my technology is a vehicle fleet of some sort, the age of those vehicles, the miles of those vehicles, how are they purchased? Are they being leased? Are they owned? Those kinds of things can all lead to that idea of how do we look at this business and change that flow of information, that flow of technology. So that makes a lot of difference in there. So I have that example of the laser jet, but there's certainly other ones out there. There's tons of those out there. So this should be a comprehensive, exhaustive. You need to have some eyeballs on it and try to figure out what they are using for and where they are using it at. Because honestly, if it's a machine or an electronic device and it's sitting in the corner not being used at all, that should be in this report. What is the usage of this particular device? And sometimes we find out they have bought something and they aren't using it for whatever reason. It doesn't fit their current business model. Maybe they're no longer doing that. Maybe it's something that later on in your recommendation you could write a report that says you have a letter folding machine but you no longer mail bills out. Why do you need a machine that will hold 2,000 sheets of paper in an hour? And you can kick that one to the curb. And we actually found that one at a friend of mine's business when I kind of just gave him the freebie, hey, what can I do to help you? And he had some equipment, including a letter folding machine and stuffing machine, because he did a very smart business move. He actually owns, of all things, a trash service. Trash service makes a pretty good amount of revenue if you haven't gotten into that business. Anything that you can do that somebody else doesn't want to do, you can make money at. And he makes a very good living off of running a trash service. He runs a smaller town, runs a trash service. He runs 3 days a week. That's his schedule. That's his work life, 3 days a week. And he mostly hires people and has them do the work for him for 3 days a week. And makes significantly more than I make here. But we looked at that, and one of the things that he had was a very smart business decision. At some point, he managed to convince the city to, instead of him having to send a bill to each individual customer, and then he had to get checks or payment from everybody, and then decide who he has to pick up garbage from and who hasn't paid their bill and who doesn't want garbage service, whatever. is he got the city to just include that in their city bill. And a lot of towns do that, but this has not historically been the case. But he walked into the business proposal and said, here, I will save every citizen in the town $3 a month on their trash service. That's a big difference to a lot of people, $3 a month. If you said, I'm going to save you $3 a month, you go, less hassle, you have one check to write. Well, for him, that worked out actually in his favor because he didn't have to deal with all these individual clients and customers. He went from having to stuff thousands of envelopes a month and send out bills to sending out one bill and getting a pretty good return on that investment. So cut costs and increase efficiency. So that worked out for him. It alleviated a lot of other city issues with tenants and things not. Because they have a lot of resident students there also. And students were notorious for not deciding to pay their trash bill, so the trash would pile up. But how do you go after somebody who's now 600 or 800 miles away? What's your success on collecting from them? Not really that great. So again, it's that idea of how do you examine that business and that structure. So it is a little uncomfortable sometimes for the business owner because you're poking in and you're asking questions they may already know an answer to or a solution, but you're asking that question. They may be embarrassed. Hey, well, yeah, I haven't updated that computer since 1997. I probably should think about those kinds of things. But what you're going to do later on, and not in this section, this is just that overview, is you are going to look at solutions and ways to provide those kinds of things. So we have to have all the groundwork. We have to have that groundwork. Lay that first, make sure you get that done. So again, I've mentioned there's a whole list of videos in here. So again, these are from the author of our textbook, all about different things for this week's chapter, so you hopefully will be able to do that. So this week, again, I will split the online and the on-campus students. So the online students, there is a discussion board assignment for you to detail. On campus, you guys are going to have a little more hands-on. We're going to continue our project that we actually started last week with suggestions and upgrades and things for our computer lab. All right. Do what? Who? For you guys in class, because we're going to actually work in class on a project or 3 or 4. Trust me, you would have done more work.
I sat down in here and I was like, why did we have no discussion board last week? And now we have one this week and our paper. So now it's just more work this week.
Yes, it's more work for you. That's the whole idea. All right, any questions? That's the
Are we the group you need to talk to? Right?
No.
We haven't talked to us. Have you?
Yes? No?
Like sat up there and talked to you?
No. But I thought I threw some feedback in Blackboard. No?
Okay. You might have done that.
I might have, if I thought I had.
I didn't.
It could be I slept. I can't remember what I did.
So since Trey and I are submitting together, so like Trey submits his, will it just probably be
I will just throw it, I will just cross it across. So it'll probably be in his, I will probably not duplicate it. So. All right, any other questions? Anybody want yesterday's weather back?
Yes. I mean, it's not terrible today.
No, it's not as bad as it could
It's
be.
just a little cold.
I am very sad that I spent time inside when I could have been outside in that beautiful weather. But I was thinking that I would watch a great football game. It was a great defensive game.
There was a football game on?
Yeah.
I worked on my case study all day yesterday.
Yeah, I should have. On the other hand, we had some great food and dip and buffalo dip that's now filled my fridge up. So. All right, any other questions? Going once? Going twice?